In today's video, we are going to be discussing redistricting of 2022 and the ultimate question, who actually won the 2022 redistricting process? So let's get right into today's video. Now, I would want to warn you guys that this video is going to be longer than my usual 5 to 15 minute upload. So with that kept in mind, I'm going to start this video. We're going to start with alphabetical order, starting from Alabama. Alabama in litigation previously actually struck down by a state court, but it was reaffirmed by the Supreme Court. That being said, they will have a ruling on majority black districts or plurality black districts or majority minority districts and the VRA in, I believe, October 4th of 2022. This will ultimately decide if minorities will have a continued say, a guaranteed continued say in the election process, or would state legislatures be able to draw these maps and the minority population will not be guaranteed any seats. So the old map and the new map, currently speaking, doesn't look much different, and the partisan leans, they aren't super different either, so we're going to just leave Alabama as that. Alaska only has one sole seat of R plus 15, went to Trump by R plus 10, went to the incumbent in the House by, I believe, is it R plus 8 or R plus 12? Okay, so it was R plus 11. So yeah. Going to Arizona, this is the first state that is important, and right now Politico does say a small boost for the GOP. I do agree with this characterization. The old map had, I believe, 5 districts that were safe. 4 districts that were safe for the Democrats, 3 districts that were safe for Trump, and 2 competitive seats. 1 seat that was Trump plus 4.2, and 1 seat that was Biden plus 1.8. In the 538 map, this is more conservative. It's margins right here. The old map, we had 3 Democratic safe or leaning seats, 5 Republican safe or leaning seats, with 1 seat being R plus 6 held by a Democrat, and a competitive seat with a D plus 2 partisan lean that is also held by the Democratic Party. In this new map, Tom O'Harlan's district is practically drawn out by the Republican Party, giving the Republicans an R plus 15 partisan lean. Greg Stanton's district from, I believe, D plus 15 goes to just D plus 1, though he should be able to win re-election. And Kilpatrick's district also becomes about a R plus 7 seat from a D plus 2 Democratic leading seat. So overall, very disappointing for the Democrats. They do have a good district, first district, which it was previously R plus 13. Now they can possibly win against the first district incumbent, David Jorgensen. However you pronounce his name. Overall, I do think the Republicans have about a 1 seat advantage, because in the end the state is trending Democrat, but I think the Republicans in the near future do have an advantage. I do agree with the small boost for the GOP. Arkansas, we don't have much of a change. This second district was competitive in the 2020 general election, and it went to French Hill by about 11 percentage points, much wider of a margin than expected. So he shored up the incumbent there, and now it's pretty much safe for the Republican Party. Not much to change there. I'm not going to change the GOP plus 1, so right now the GOP is ahead. Now going to California, this one is the first extremely large state. In fact, the largest state in the United States right now, and there's a lot to unpack in the state. The old map, I believe, the old map had 7 Republican leading seats, 44 Democratic leading seats, and 2 highly competitive seats. And the Democrats actually lost a Democratic leading seat, considering that the state did have to lose a district due to the census. That being said, this is not as simple. The Democrats shored up every single one of their seats to be at least D plus 10, basically voted for Biden by 10. Also, they made the Republicans a lot more difficult to win some of these districts. For example, Mike Garcia, previously in a D plus 5 district, now in a D plus 8 district, making it much harder for him to win re-election, especially in 2024 or something. And the 21st district, David Valadao won by 9 points. Previously in D plus 9 district, now in the D plus 10 district. You might be like, that's not super substantial, but let me show you something. 21st District between David Valadao and TJ Cox. This district became 1 point something more Democratic right now, and it only won to David Valadao by less than 1 percentage point. Similarly, Mike Garcia only won by a margin of 0.1% of the vote. And the district is now about 2 to 3 points more Democratic, meaning that it is very bad for some of these incumbents. In the final incumbent, I'm going to mention Michelle Steele. I'm going to zoom in. Michelle Steele. Yeah, I believe this is Michelle Steele's district. Previously, a district that is R+2, now a district that is D+5. She should have no problem winning re-election, but in 2022, but the district could flip in 2024, definitely. It could even flip in 2022. We'll just have to see. So, after I calculated every single thing in California, I give the Democrats about a 3-seat advantage. The reason being that they also made this district more competitive. They now don't really need to care about a lot of the districts that they are shored up for Democrats, and they can now target the 3 incumbents I just mentioned on the Republican Party side more easily. So I do give the Democrats a 3-seat advantage. Right now, the Democrats are ahead by 2 seats, but we haven't gotten to the states in which Republicans have a significant advantage in. Colorado with a new additional House seat, little to no change. I do agree, Democrats were a little bit disappointed with this map. There's a good reason why, but this is generally a pretty fair map overall. I'm just gonna leave it there. The additional seat was a Biden plus 4.7 seat. That being said, the 538 redistricting tracker does have it as R+3. In a neutral environment, it will be R+3 of a seat, but Biden was able to carry the seat. We're just gonna leave it at that. But they also, the final thing I'll mention is that they did shore up the Republican Lauren Boebert, and they did make the Sound District more competitive to the point in which I do think that it will be slightly competitive in 2020. In 2022. Now going to the state of Connecticut. Connecticut really had no change. Just looking at some of these districts, these are the 2 competitive districts. They both became 0.1 point more Democratic. Wow, super significant of a change, right? Anyways, next state. I'm not going to care about the state of Connecticut. Delaware, I mean, there's only 1 district, so what would you expect? Florida is the big one. It is a big boost for the GOP, but we're going to start analyzing the state right now. Going to the state of Florida. Florida, look at this. There are many significant changes here. Let's start by using the 538 redistricting website because there's a lot of purple districts that really aren't super competitive, and we'll get to all of them. The first area that the Republicans were able to gain a seat in was this Lawson seat, which was previously a VRA seat. Now, the map, I believe, was struck down by a Florida judge because of this VRA district, but I believe they will very. I'm not sure if I believe the court will end up retaining the map. I believe they already did. And looking at this district, it's a D+21 seat. Now it's a D+16 and a D+15 seat. So basically, the Republicans gained the seat up here. Next area in the Tampa Bay area, Charlie Crist, a Democrat incumbent here, I believe won by a pretty decent margin for him, by a margin of 6 points, by about 25,000 votes in this district. Now his district is right now R+12. He is running for governor, but he's not going to win that race. And the Democrats pretty much got packed into this 14th district, which gives the Republicans another net gain of 0.5 seats, as well as that Stephanie Murphy also got drawn into a R+14 seat. From these 2 seats are D+5 and D+4, but these are neutral environment seats, so in 2020, I'm going to show you guys, in 2020, the Democrats were won the 9x7 and the 7x10. Right now, it's a Trump plus 5.4 district in the 7th district, so it's very likely it's going to go Republican. So, counting that in, it's about a two-seat Republican advantage. And then finally, we go to the Miami area. Republicans also basically shored up these 2 incumbents from R+3 and D+4 to D+1 and R+4. and they basically showed up a couple of their competitive seats as well, and they made another, I believe, competitive seat in 23rd. It's only slightly competitive, but it does help the GOP overall. I will give the Republicans a 2-3 seat advantage in this race. I'm going to give them a 2, which basically ties the Democratic Party, but we still have a lot of states to go. In the state of Georgia here, Republicans had a small boost. I'd say a small to mid boost for the GOP. They made the 2nd district slightly more competitive, though it's not going to change much, but it did end up making this district now a safe Republican district instead of a safe Democratic district. Overall, I'm going to give the GOP a 1-seat advantage in the state of Georgia. Next state, Hawaii. No, of course, there's not going to be much of a change in the state of Hawaii. Idaho, yeah, these states I don't really want to analyze. Illinois, this is a big boost for the Democratic Party. I do agree with this characterization, and we'll get to why in a second. Right now, the Republicans have a 1-seat advantage according to our previous characterizations, but that's about to change with Illinois. You can see this map is quite atrocious. There's a snake district. The previous district was also somewhat resembled of somewhat like a deer district, but it was definitely less cursed than the current district right now, which actually looks like a snake. And this 12th district, this you can argue it's gerrymandered, but now it looks even much more ugly. And previously 5 Republican districts has now become to 3, and the only competitive district is Biden plus 8, so that's really bad for GOP. And also, previously, the other 2 districts, Trump actually won in the 17th district, though there is a Democratic incumbent who is not running for re-election. If this was a district, the Republicans will be able to win pretty comfortably without an incumbent. And the 14th, which was previously Biden plus 2.4, I believe, now is Biden plus 11.7. Counting all of those things in, the Democrats basically gained about 2 to 3 seats in the state of Illinois. Basically, they drew out 1 Republican incumbent, made this Republican very unlikely to win, though that's 2 seats for them, and then shored up some of their seats. Overall, it's about 2 to 3 seat advantage. I'm going to label as 2, which gives the Democrats the edge again. Indiana, not much of a change, though they did shore up the 5th district for the Republican Party. It's not much of the change, so I'm not going to label much for the state of Indiana. Now, interestingly enough, in the state of Indiana, the previous district, it does label as R plus 8, but Trump only was able to win this district by a margin of 2 points, but that's really beside the point. We're going to go to Iowa. Iowa, interesting enough, Iowa, I don't believe they can actually split a single county in its redistricting process, so their map did not change much. I mean, the districts got shuffled around because you cannot split counties, but I mean, the districts, the margins did not change much, alright? The 1st district became 1.2 points more Democratic. The 3rd district was a Democratic incumbent, 0.3% more Republican, and the 2nd, 1% more Republican. So, not much of a change here. Pretty much somewhat of a change in terms of the counties, but a least change proposal basically compared on the partisan advantage side of things. And if we look at the FiveThirtyEight website, it's pretty much a similar story with the old map and the new map not changing much. You can see the district is now up to 6, but that's really just a 1% shift, and that's not something that's super substantial. Overall, there's basically no change in the state of Iowa. Kansas, a small boost for GOP, previously pretty much a safe Democratic district, now Biden plus 4.5 seat. This district, though, I think the Republicans have about a half-seat victory. I think Sharice Davids will have trouble winning if this is her new district, but in 2024-2026, Democrats probably will at least flip it back for 1 election cycle. So I'm going to give the Republicans about 0.5 seats in the state, and for Illinois, I'm going to give the Democrats also another 0.5 seats as well. So going to the state of Kentucky, we don't have much to talk about there. Louisiana, this map is also in litigation. They actually had to redraw the map because a federal court ended up throwing the map because it only had one Democratic one district that was majority minority. The court said you needed two. That's at least somewhat close to majority minority, the second district. But they're gonna have, but again, it's gonna be fought in the courts. It's likely not gonna change at all, in my opinion. So we're just gonna leave Louisiana alone, shall we? For Maine, basically no change. The districts got slightly more. The second district, the competitive district, got slightly more Republican, Democratic leaning, but really, I don't think that is a super substantial difference. R plus 11 to R plus 10, Trump plus 7.7 to Trump plus 6.3. Not super significant. Going to Maryland, little to no change. I'd say it's fair. Looking at this, I mean, the 6th district was 13.5% more competitive. Similar thing, I believe, happened in another district. The 2nd district, they actually labeled. Now, in the state of Maryland, the 538 website actually labels the 6th district as R plus 1, though Biden was able to win the state by 11. I still think the Democrats will end up having the advantage in this district in 2024, in 2022, 2024, and beyond. So it's not much of a change. I'm not going to label anything for Maryland. Massachusetts, absolutely nothing. All safe Democratic districts. Which is also the case on 538, by the way. The state of Michigan, looking at this, what the heck just happened? Anyways, looking at this map, there's not, I mean, overall, it's pretty much not much of a change. Those specific districts have changed by quite a bit. The first district I would like to mention is Peter Major's district, from Trump plus 3.3 to Biden plus 8.6. This is a very good Democratic pickup opportunity from 2022 and to the future, especially considering that the incumbent here could get primaried, which will make the Democrats even more likely to end up picking off this district. This is a win for the Democratic Party, and the 4th district hasn't changed much, but a win for GOP from the 8th district, from Biden plus 4.5 to Biden plus only 2.1. And on 538, they do label both of these districts, the 8th and the 7th, as the Republican, leaning slightly towards the Republican Party. The 7th district, though, has trended about 1.8 points more Democratic. The 10th district, though, this is a huge win for GOP. Biden plus 13 to now a Trump leading seat by about 0.7 percentage points. They actually have it as likely on 538, but I don't think that's a very accurate characterization. Overall, I won't say there's any substantial change. I'm not going to give any party the advantage in this specific state. Minnesota, you also have a little to no change map. Basically, they made the 1st district 1 point more Republican and more competitive. The 2nd district, pretty much the same. These change proposal, really not much of a change. Mississippi, not much of a change. Looking at this, it barely changed. I mean, it's 1 of 3. You don't really need, there's no argument on that, on the state. Missouri, they shored up. The 2nd district actually was a Biden plus 0.1 seat. This actually surprised me. I thought it was like a Trump plus 3 seat. Now it's a Trump plus 7.8 seat. So by that, I'm going to give the Republicans a half seat advantage in this district. But really, yeah, not much of a change, especially compared to some other maps. Montana, small boost for GOP. Honestly, it's not much of a change. They added Trump plus 7.1 seat because the state basically had gained another seat. This 1st district will be competitive potentially in the future, but probably not in 2022. The next state is Nebraska. Nebraska, little to no change. I do agree. The district is now 0.3 points more Democratic. Now 538 does disagree with this. In fact, if you pull off 538, it shows that it's 3 points more Republican, but it's actually just 0.3% more Republican. So, yeah, little to no change. I'm just gonna say no change for the state of Nebraska. Also, for some reason, the Republicans ended up gerrymandering the first district to Trump plus 11.2 district. In a best case scenario, especially considering the state trending Democratic. Not the state, but some Lincoln and Omaha. Potentially the Democrats could narrow down the first district, but that's potentially, not likely. Nevada Democrats gerrymandered the district. Democrats were guaranteed one seat, Republicans guaranteed one seat previously. Now the Democrats basically split up their votes. They do have all three of their seats going in their way, while in 2020, the 2020 map, they also had the three seats all going in their favor. They basically made these two districts more Democratic leaning, but they sacrificed the first district incumbent, so in the worst case scenario, Democrats could lose all 4 of these seats. I'd say Democrats slightly gained by about 0.1 seat or something, but really not much of a change. So a pretty significant map change, but not really in terms of the districts. New Hampshire least change proposal ended up passing through, so yeah, when you say least change proposal, you know not much was changed. New Jersey, this one, I don't really agree with this little to no change. I do give the Democrats a 1-seat advantage. Reason being, the Democrats basically shored up many of their incumbents. Young Kim was in a Biden plus 0.0 district. Now he's in a Biden plus 14.5 district, alright? The second district got more Republican, but barely. The Democrats shored up these two districts while leaving the 7th district more competitive. I think the Democrats will lose this seat. The incumbent there underran Joe Biden by a margin of, he only won by 1.2 points, not a very popular incumbent, while Biden won the seat by 10.6 points. So he's set to lose. Even the map did not change. I think he probably would still lose. He's pretty much done for in 2024. Look at New Jersey here. You can see that the Democrats shored up many of their seats. So it's still, I think, a small boost for the Democratic Party. Looking at the state of New Mexico, this is a small boost for Democrats. I do agree they slightly gerrymandered the district, the Democrats, but the Republicans, the Republicans, they can still end up winning these two districts in the best case scenario, but that's unlikely to happen. Overall, the Democrats probably gain about 0.5 seats. I'm gonna say 0.5 because technically, the Democrats' social tourist Small actually was able to win the district for a term of 2 years before losing in 2020, the 2020 election. So yeah. Now I'm gonna go to the state of New York, which has a small boost for GOP. I do agree with this. Previously had a big boost for Democrats until the map got struck down. So looking at the districts here, we do have a decent amount to uncover. The first district is the 22nd district. Previously had a Republican incumbent, John Katko, who was set to retire in this election cycle. It has been 1.7% more Democratic. The 19th district is actually 1.7 points more Republican, but the 19th district has been 3 points more Democratic. The 18th district, 3 points more Democratic. So on the upper state, the Democrats seem to have gained a little bit of ground. But again, I have to use 538 because 538 is the only website that actually lets me zoom in. So going to the 11th district, previously R plus 13, now R plus 11, not much of a change there. But I would like to mention that Sean Patrick Manonley, I believe, they basically redrew the districts pretty significantly, but the 17th district right now is much more competitive, but it's unlikely to flip. The new map, though, here's where it gets interesting. In the old map, the Republicans have these 2 seats, and Democrats hold these 2. While for the new map, these 2 districts, the 3rd district gets slightly more Republican. That being said, I don't think actually the Republicans, they don't really have a boost. It's pretty much a toss-up map. I'm gonna move to the next state. I do disagree with this. I think the Republicans may have this very slight boost, but given the size of New York, I don't think it's a boost too notable, and the Republicans actually lost a seat upstate. So yeah. Going to North Carolina, it's a small boost for Democrats. I do agree there's an additional seat. The additional seat is an additional Democratic seat in Charlotte. Now this map could be redrawn in 2 years. The Democrats could end up losing the North Carolina Supreme Court, but at least for these 2 years, the Democrats have a pretty good map. They have an additional seat here in the state of North Carolina, and there is an additional competitive seat. Right now the map is 7-7 according to President 2020 data. I do think that all the Democrats will end up losing the 13th, but the Democrats still they have a small boost, about a +1 boost for them. Now let's go to the next state, the state of Ohio. Ohio had a big boost for the Republican Party. Let's start with the only bad news for the Republican Party. They didn't make the first district from Trump +3.3 to Democrat +8.6. So the incumbent there is unlikely going to win, but in 2022. But the other news is pretty much good news. He drew out Tim Ryan's seat. Although he's running for Senate, they decided to draw this map out. The Republicans did 15.2 points towards Donald Trump, which basically ends the career for Tim Ryan, even if he wants to run for this seat. The 13th district, the 13th district now, it's actually 9 plus 2.8, but I'm pretty sure they so they basically, Tim Ryan's seat now, slightly Democratic leaning seat becomes this one, but yeah, I do think the Republicans will be able to carry it. With a Republican coming in 2024, I think the Republicans will be able to ride out that wave. The 7th district, it was previously, I believe, this seat, they're counting this seat, but it's still a 9.6% Republican district. Here's the first piece of good news for the especially good news for the Republican Party. From Biden +92.4 to now Trump +2.8 is the Toledo district right now with incumbent Marcy Caper. She is likely going to lose in 2022. And in the 15th district, it's not really much of a change, especially considering rural Ohio is trending towards the Republican Party. So that basically has my analysis. Overall, Republicans gain about 1 seat in the state of Ohio. So actually, it is kind of a small boost, but it is a boost regardless. Oregon has a small boost for the Democrats, I do agree. Democrats, they basically gained a seat. They shored up the Republican seat, but they also shored up their seats, so overall a Democratic boost of 1. Let me do the quick math right now. It looks like the GOP has gained 6 seats, while the Democrats have gained, Democrats have actually gained 9 seats, so the Democrats are currently ahead by a margin of 3 seats, but I don't think it's likely going to stick at the very end, because we have the state of Texas and potentially some other Republican favoring states. It did skip over Oklahoma, sorry, but there's not much of a change there. They shored up the Republican incumbent, though. For Pennsylvania, not much of a change. The Democrats, their good news is that Connor Lamsey is more Democratic. It's now Biden +6 compared to Biden +0.8. But again, Susan Wild's district is more competitive. Brian Fitzpatrick is more Republican leaning, though he's probably gonna be fine anyways. And just looking at this map, not much of a change. I'm gonna stick with it. No change in the state of Pennsylvania. Rhode Island, South Carolina. South Carolina, there is one district that's more competitive, more Republican favoring, but I don't think it's that much of a difference. Tennessee, the Republicans has a small boost after they basically drew out the Democratic incumbent from the 5th district. Previously, Biden +24.1, now Trump +11.8, so the Republicans gain another seat, giving the Democrats advantage just 2 seats. The next state I will be talking about is the state of Texas. Texas, a huge boost towards the Republican Party. I'm going to use FiveThirtyEight because that's, again, the only website that lets me actually zoom in. So we're going to zoom into Dallas, alright? You can see some of these in atrociously drawn district. This is actually only a Biden Trump +12 seat, but the others are very safe for the Republican Party. The old map, you can see that the Republicans, they basically shored up Jake Ellsey, Van Taylor, and Beth Van Jury, and just shored up Colin Allred so they could short up all the other Republican incumbents. Similar thing in the state of Texas. Dan Crenshaw, Troy E. Niels, and Michael T. McCall, they all got short up, and the Republicans in return basically dumped the Democratic vote into the 7th District. Similar thing happened to Chip Roy, John Carter's district, in which the Democrats, they basically just the Republicans basically short up this map. So the Democrats, basically, they have these seats over here also short up. But yeah, the state of Texas is actually trending Democratic very heavily. So the Republicans, they did a very good job of shoring up their own districts. They also made the 23rd about 8 points more Republican, so the Democrats cannot really challenge the seat. They did shore up Vincent Gonzalez's seat to now D+17. And yeah, so this open seat now is even. It went to Donald Trump, but they did give the Republicans, they did give the Democrats these 2 seats basically. Although Henry Cuellar's seat will be very close, given Henry Cuellar being kind of scandal plagued, given that the FBI raided his home, but that's a discussion for later. We're gonna do finally the final. So it's the state of Texas where we calculate it all up. The old map in 2024, in an election like 2022 will likely make no change, but in an election like in the 2030s, I can imagine all these likely Republican districts flipping, which could potentially add another, if all these light red districts flip toward the Democrats will end up gaining 8 seats in the state of Texas. So calculating all of that gives me the conclusion that the Republicans gained 3 seats in the state of Texas, which is a big boost for GOP, by the way. And if you look at that, strong Trump seats end up gaining 10, competitive seats dropped by 11. They did shore up 3 Democratic incumbents, but yeah, strong Trump seats end up going up 10, which is very substantial. Now going to the state of Virginia, no change. The Independent Commission did a pretty good job. The 7th District got 5 points more Democratic, but the 2nd District got more Republican, and the 1st and 5th District stayed relatively same, though similar. But also I would want to mention that the 10th District got slightly more competitive, especially if you look at FiveThirtyEight. They did end up having the Democrats gaining, Republicans gaining huge time in the 10th District by I believe 4 points, though it's actually just 1 point Virginia's president 2020 data, but that's beside the point. This is a pretty fair map, and it hasn't changed by a whole lot. Washington, little to no change. You can see that basically these 3 districts are safe Republican, these 6 districts are safe Democrat. There's a competitive seat that trained Democrat by 0.2% compared to the old map, so not much of a change either. So West Virginia, I'm not going to be talking about that. Wisconsin here. So, Wisconsin, you don't really see much of a change in the 1st District. Those become 10 points more Republican, though, so that Democratic, though, so it is a good thing for Democrats. Overall, not much of a change. The state of Wisconsin, you kind of have to draw it so the Republicans are favored in the state of Wisconsin. Wyoming, we don't have any kind of change. Wyoming has only ever had 1 congressional seat. It has been held by Republican Dick Cheney since the election, since the 1970s. So we're gonna go back to the United States. Why doesn't it let me go back? Okay, I'm gonna just click back to 2022 redistricting. Overall here, after I've done my map, the GOP has gained 10 seats in redistricting, the Democrats gained 9 seats, which means the Republicans netted 1 seat over the Democratic Party. Anyways, that is my conclusion. So basically, both parties did not change by a lot, but the Republicans ended up having a 1 seat advantage over the Democratic Party in terms of redistricting. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye!